Yes, you can smile. I know it looks complicated, but the beauty is...
Look, it's a little more complicated.
More complicated?
The job is so much more complicated than I thought.
Say my family is complicated the way that most families are complicated.
It's much, much more complicated than we thought.
Well, it's a complicated question on a number of...
Complicated.
Then everything started getting complicated.
It's too complicated for the phone. Just
Complicated.
But this is life.
No, it's not more.
I can. It's complicated.
You're a complicated cat, Edward.
Plus the devices themselves are complicated.
And the wheels rig are perfectly simple. Yes, you can smile. I know it looks complicated, but the beauty is how little there is to it and how much power comes out of it.
Seeing Constance.
She had your semen inside her.
Look, it's a little more complicated than that.
Cute, Evan.
It's a little complicated. I haven't seen results like these before.
Not even with my...
The job is so much more complicated than I thought. I really want to be there for Ivy's birthday.
I guess you can say my family is complicated the way that most families are complicated.
You think you'll ever tell them?
What, that I own the earth?
Well, it's a very complicated situation. It's much, much more complicated than we thought. Shit. What am I going to do about the car?
Fuck the father of the only woman I've ever loved.
Well, it's a complicated question on a number of accounts. But no.
You won't be there. It's complicated.
I understand. Grin. I thought I was cruising. Then everything started getting complicated.
You ought to be ashamed, son.
Look, Dad, this is too complicated for the phone. Just
Get a cab, go back to the home. I'll call you tonight and I'll explain everything about it.
Look, I know that this is complicated.
Complicated?
But this is the truth. I am a federal intelligence.
Wiped clean.
Well, it's more complicated than that. There's a wide...
No, it's not more complicated. It's either simple yes or no. It was either clean.
Why don't you explain it to me? I don't know if I can. It's complicated. I wish this was giving me some hope.
You're a complicated cat, Edward.
No, not really.
An ecological disaster, sir. Plus the devices themselves are complicated.
That's why you're coming with us.
Move your heart and put it into Michael's body.
John, there are too many unknowns. Matching a donor and a recipient is extremely complicated. There are several critical tests that have to be taken.
Like what?
Run-of-the-mill sex.
Yeah. People have to complicate it with all this kinky shit.
Yeah.
You don't have anything like that, do you?
Sure, anyone can see that.
Sure.
You know, you're deep and probably complicated.
Can I buy you lunch?
Me?
Please.
In order to determine which side one's on, things have become more complicated.
No, it's gotten simpler. There's no...
Between the government and the arts.
That's so complicated. I don't know. I just think...
Thinking the story involves a guy?
It's complicated.
Is he still around?
No, he...
And the bill's still stuck.
Martin, I'm as frustrated as you are, but lining up votes to break the filibuster's a complicated process.
Dirkson's amendments will gut the bill.
Dirksen.
It's the happiest I've ever felt. But it's complicated.
Is it strong?
Mr. Sauzet's less than intelligent couriers was taken in a complicated confidence scam by a cripple. He was relieved of $62,000.
You buy companies and close them down?
Well, a little more complicated than that, Dad. Take this cannery, for instance. Turns out...
Founded, we can dig it up. It's not that complicated.
Actually, historically, we found it could be quite complicated, and we'd like the opportunity to help you formulate.
He kept coming in after work, and he would just order the most complicated drinks, things that I had no idea how to make. And...
Sans votre aide, là. Un parachute qui a pas ouvert, là, encore sur le dos. Puis y a personne qui se pitch en bas de deltaplane. C'est bien trop compliqué avec les straps et tout. Faut comme vraiment être déterminé. Là. Le festival est...
Look, I'm afraid it's much too complicated to explain to her.
We'll just have to sit tight and wait for the car to arrive from the yard.
Issues and programming problems, and the bigger we get, the more complicated it's gonna get.
But isn't this what a startup is?
I don't want to make anything more complicated than it already is.
Well, I didn't expect it to be so complicated.
Oh, we're very fortunate. Any difficulty can be
in the core, Doctor. It's complicated.
Well, how much time do you need? We have...
I was... well, it's a little complicated, I suppose. I can't right now.
Can't do much when there's a raging storm. Not playing the trumpet is about the only thing you can do, just not to complicate matters. But I couldn't bear it down there.
Smart, sexy, uninhibited, spontaneous, complicated. She's the sweetest thing I've ever seen.
You know, I knew Gladys for 2.5 years before I asked her to marry me.
No, you don't have to say that.
I know I don't have to say it, but I feel that way. I have very, very complicated feelings towards you. I like to be with you, and I.
Carburetors, and I can tell you without being into it, that is a complicated unit.
I understand. I could do it myself.
Be having a drink. This fucker's getting too complicated. Let's simplify things. You take care of the bartender, and then we'll take a real close look at him.
So much for this.
It's a pleasure. They really make it seem, far more complicated than it really should be.
Leave that. I will do it. Just leave it. You've already done it.
I was criticizing Ptolemy for complicating everything with his epicycles. But I don't know, perhaps I'm just...
We aren't dealing with ordinary machines here. These are highly complicated pieces of equipment, almost as complicated as living organisms.
I want to see Magda.
I have to arrange your transport. It's complicated,
It's already been arranged.
It remains a very sensitive military zone. In fact, our friends, the Greeks, have made things even more complicated by invading Turkey's western coast.
We are doing as much for this country as he is.
It's complicated. Trumbo, the others, all have contracts.
I'm not sure time is something we got in great supply. This isn't Iraq yet. It's more complicated than that. Boss, most of Washington might disagree. I'm just...
Line the rest of them up. On my mark.
You tried to convince us it's all too complicated for us to understand. It's not that complicated at all, is it?
Falsified my transaction records.
All right, ladle.
All right. Now, this is very complicated to follow. I don't expect you to get it on the first pass, so listen very...
You should go and find some uncomplicated girl to love and stop wasting it on me.
I like
psychiatrist. That's right. My wife reads your books. It's changed her life.
Good, I'm glad. Look, this sounds terribly complicated. But my friend has had some difficult emotional experiences during the...
Story, actually from work. It was quite a complicated case based on an issue of cross-amortization of ownership of post-divorce properties.
Said she was complicated.
Nick, everyone knows complicated is code for bitch.
Looking for it. Yes, Bible sales. Now, the trade is not a complicated one. There are but two things to learn. One being where to find a...
Yes, you are, Congressman. Saving everybody. It's a whole lot more complicated than that. Now, Corporal Melvin, he's been drawing these pictures and he...
The rest of them, there's just you and me now. Look, it's complicated enough for people like me without trying to explain to people like you. People like what?